You ever get those ridiculous social media scams where people pretend to be somebody you're friends with and tell you you can make a lot of money? I know I do. It's why I'm very excited to partner with today's sponsor, Aura. Aura is an easy to use app that essentially packages a bunch of services to stay safe online all in one. Aura protects you from scammers and hackers. They scan the web for all sorts of data leaks and alert you as soon as they find anything. Aura is like the offensive line for a quarterback, consistently offering you protection from suspicious and malicious activity. They have a VPN built in that keeps your browsing history and personal information safe and encrypted. They'll even alert you if someone's trying to open up a credit card or a loan in your name. Did I mention they protect all your devices from viruses, malware, spyware, and any other things so the bad guys can't break in? Aura can even manage what your kids do on their devices. You can set limits and restrict them from specific apps. They have a password manager as well, so you don't have to rely on an outdated Rolodex or that sticky note that's been on your desk forever. There are apps that do all of these things, but there isn't one that tackles everything the way Aura does, which is why I say Aura is a 5-man offensive line and you're the quarterback. So head on over to aura.com/JKB. You can find it in the description and start your free trial today. All right, what is up, guys? It has been a minute, or at least it feels that way, because I was on a roll and then we kind of went off the roll a little bit. Been doing a lot of draft stuff, and then, you run out of time. You focus all your day, watching edge prospects, and then you're like, oh crap, it's already midnight, So yeah, it's been a little bit harder to go live over the last couple days, so that's why the absence, essentially. But I'm back, and welcome for those of you who are new here. Welcome. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment if you enjoy this at any point, or you have any questions or anything like that. So I have a few takes that we'll be discussing in this video. I know, first off, the video you're looking at right now has a thumbnail with Will Levis in it. And as you guys know, I'm not the biggest Will Levis fan this draft. I don't think he's terrible. I have him as a second-round grade. But the question is, could the Rams trade up in the NFL draft? And the reason I brought it up is because I was asked today to go over it. There was a CBS mock draft that had Will Levis going to the Rams. And now I understand anybody can have a mock draft, okay? I don't just comment on this like, whatever. I understand everyone has an opinion and whatnot, but when you raise your eyebrows a little bit when a mock draft has a trade, okay? At least I do, because, I was not born yesterday. If there is a trade involved, it means that you have some sources behind it, or, maybe you think it's just a cool idea, but typically speaking, you don't have a team trading into the first round, essentially, to draft a quarterback from 36th, by the way, if it means that you're just throwing a guess out there. Like, you've probably heard some chatter, and it's CBS Sports, so, this could be somebody that was at the combine and, brushed shoulders with a guy who said this. Look, I've been at those events. I went to the Senior Bowl 3 years in a row. Like, I remember distinctively the buzz that was just, and it's not what you think. It's really just straight up conversation. Be like, yeah, that guy? Yeah, he might not be around much longer. What do you mean? Oh yeah, they're interested in trading him. That's how it starts. There are guys that are very loose-lipped around there that are, clearly you have agents that want to spread stuff, and so they tell other people, and then other people spread it for them, and it gives them some leverage by having it out there. But this Will Levis thing just had me thinking. What if the Rams seriously considered trading back into the first round and selecting a guy like that if he fell? Now, I'm not 100% certain he does fall, and I don't want him, right? I don't want him in the first round. I don't want to trade up. I think they should stay at 36. It took me a while to even feel that. I thought, for a while I was like, you got to trade down. But now, looking at this draft, no, you need to get an edge as soon as possible, because there are not a lot of edge defenders in this class that I'm feeling great about, okay? After, I'd say, the top 12, things get a little shaky. So let's just say this, right? Will Levis, this trade, what would it cost? According to this mock draft, it was a second rounder next year and a second rounder this year. So their 36th pick, They swap with the Detroit Lions at 18, and they pick 18th, and they take Will Levis, and the Lions get the second round next year and their 36th overall pick. So you trade up 16, or I can't even do math, 18 spots, and you give up the second round pick next year. No, thank you. Okay. Second round picks matter. Okay. Next year, they want all their picks. I don't think they're doing this, but it is interesting that out of all the teams, I've traded Will Levis in, a little, I haven't like made him official mock drafts, but I made an NFL mock draft for the first round, and I had him go into the Bucs. I think the Bucs might trade up. The Bucs also have the 19th pick. Wouldn't be a shock to me if they trade up with the New York Jets, or if they trade up with a team like that, got into the teens, earlier in the teens, and then they selected Will Levis. Would not shock me. The Rams moving up 18 spots to get a quarterback might shock me. But then you think about it, and you're like, okay, you may think the Rams ended on bad terms with Liam Cohen, but it sounds to me like Liam Cohen definitely could have come back. I'm not saying 100% he would have, but I don't know. I mean, it sounds to me like he just felt like the best fit for him was to go back to Kentucky. And, going through the process, you want to know these guys before you marry them. It's like speed dating, right? So if you're going to draft Will Levis, if any team is going to draft Will Levis, well, who better than the Rams is going to know more about him? That's the thing. The Rams had his offensive coordinator when he played his best football. They just had his offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen. Okay, so Liam Cohen has the intel on Will Levis. And if he's like saying, look, Sean calls, he's like, hey, give me your thoughts on Will. It's like, oh, Will's a great kid. Will's a winner. Will would fit in our offense like a glove. Okay, you have that connection there. There's a real connection to Will Levis. That does not mean I want him. And that does not mean the Rams want him. And that does not mean the Rams are going to get him. But at the very least, I think it's worth entertaining the idea that this, the fact it was just thrown out there was very interesting, because seeing trades being mocked in a mock draft, it is really hard to predict. But you typically don't just throw trades out there that just are like, yeah, we're just doing it for fun. The Rams, like picking 36th, having all the needs they have, I don't think they could do this if they wanted to. But who knows? And then this leads me to my next thing, and why this is the topic of the day, so to speak, is that if you guys didn't see, Sean McVay, who, let's be honest, for the entirety of last year, was pretty much saying that Matthew Stafford's elbow isn't that big of a deal, right? Matthew Stafford's elbow, yeah, it's fine, don't worry about it, like dumbing it down. And then he comes out recently, I think it was today, and he said, like, don't forget, I think people forget, Matthew Stafford had an elbow, injury or whatever. And it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, if you're going to walk that back, that's not a good look in my opinion. It's just not, and it really begs the question, is Matthew Stafford wasting his time? Like, he's, he invested with his family in that LA football club, Angel City football. I don't know soccer. I'm sorry. But, he invested in Angel City. It's a soccer team or whatever. They're really excited about it. He's going to the Kings game, being called QB1. He's with Rampage. He's banging the drum. And I just can't help but think if Matthew Stafford, and I want to get your thoughts on this, and please drop comments below. If Matthew Stafford truly is doing all of this and he's enjoying life in LA with the assumption he's going to be the guy and he's going to play out this contract and he is determined to be a Rams legendary quarterback, like, if that's the thing, and then the Rams are just going to up and get rid of him, how does that, work with you? Because for me, I feel like that would be a problem. It would look horrible. It would be your only 2 Super Bowls won by 2 quarterbacks you got rid of within a few years after you won a Super Bowl with them. And the reason I bring it up is because a Stafford trade before June 1st doesn't really seem possible, but a Stafford trade after June 1st suddenly becomes a little possible. And you know what else becomes possible? Lamar Jackson as well. And there are people asking me, hey, Jake, is there any chance the Rams could go after Lamar Jackson? And I'm just going to say, I don't think there's any chance. I don't think there's no chance. And I don't think there's anything out there that the Rams will not explore whatsoever. Like, that doesn't mean for me, that doesn't tell me that the Rams are 100% sign me up, they're going to get Lamar Jackson. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm at the point where nothing, repeat, nothing will shock me with this team. I mean, I think the only guy who is truly untradeable at this point in time is probably Aaron Donald. Like, I think that's the only one because he's got a no trade clause. Stafford does not. Cooper Kupp does not. I mean, I'm not for it. But I find it really concerning. You know, there's just I'm not saying I'm always right when I got these feelings, but I just get this feeling something is a little weird. Something's a little weird. I don't have things to back it up necessarily. It's not like I'm, sourcing anybody, but just something feels off. Like Sean McVay's saying his elbow's good now. It's not great. It's not fantastic. It's no issue. It's not like he's ready to go out there and, it's good. I don't know. There's just something off. And the fact that I know the Rams would have entertained trading Stafford if this Aaron Rodgers thing fell through just adds to it. It's just something feels off. And I mean, that's the first thing I'm going to talk about. Because I feel, quite honestly, getting Levis, and I may think he needs time to develop, but getting Levis to me is letting you know that Stafford isn't the future, and he might not even be the current time period. Like, he might be gone. So I just feel like there's just something off here. It's really odd. I can't put my finger on it. It's not Goff. It's not a Goff situation. It's a little like Sam Bradford. It feels like Sam Bradford. But I just have to say, like, watching, Matthew Stafford at the Kings game, watching how excited he is to be a part of this team in the community and being with, his wife and his kids, like, taking facts, taking even, analysis out of it, as a human being, that would be devastating for me. If I'm Stafford and I get traded. Like, there's something off. And I could be wrong. It could be nothing. But God, it feels like there's something. It does. It really does. And I understand some people might be like, how did you get all of that out of a mock draft on CBS Sports? And you honestly could be right. Maybe I'm reaching. But this show is all about me really it's the community too. Like, I mean, I make you guys as much of a part of the show as I can. But at the end of the day, this doesn't have a path. I don't come into this show with any sort of show sheet, a guide. I may look up things, but for the most part, I pretty much talk about anything except for like super, divisive topics that we'll just steer clear from. But I don't know, man. It's very, it's just, I'd say it's something to monitor. I said it the last time I was on here, not JE Live, but I did, Believe in Rams with Cam. And I said, just something to monitor. Like, if Aaron Rodgers, if that trade falls through, the Jets might go after Lamar Jackson, but they very well could go after Matthew Stafford. I can't see them trading up for a corner. I just don't see that. If they trade up, it's for a quarterback, and it would happen on draft night. It would happen right away. It wouldn't happen now. So let me just make that very clear. If this trade were to happen, this hypothetical, they're trading up in the draft. They wouldn't make a trade now. You don't do that unless it's a top pick. I still think it's kind of weird. If you're trading up now and you're not getting the number 1 overall pick, that's just weird. Speaking of weird, the 49ers. Let's talk about them for a second. You guys know, if you've been following me since, Trey Lance, I believe, is a very, very good prospect. I believe he's been mismanaged, mishandled, and I don't trust what the 49ers are doing. I don't, which is a good thing if you're a Rams fan. But apparently today, they said that Purdy has the inside track, and they mentioned Darnold as somebody they really wanted, but no mention of Trey Lance. And I gotta tell you, for all the hate, okay, for all the hate the Rams get for doing this and doing that, and you could say I've been negative, I've been real. I'm just being 100. If you haven't seen this side of me, then I've liked most of the Rams moves, and I'm just honest all the time. And for the fact is, I just haven't really liked them. But I will give the Rams a break here, because the 49ers haven't won anything. They didn't win a Super Bowl, and they completely wasted picks trading for Trey Lance because it looks like they're never going to give him a chance. They also drafted a 3rd-round running back who they just canned. Okay, that's a 3rd rounder in the same draft you drafted Trey Lance in. 3rd-round running back gone. Trey Lance, we're never going to give him a chance to start. Brock Purdy, to me, and I'm not saying he's going to be bad, but Brock Purdy, to me, is like, sticking with him to be your starting quarterback is like the Texas Longhorns sticking to Rodney Terry as their interim head coach, now going to give him a 5-year deal to be the men's basketball coach for the next 5 years. Like, Rodney Terry wasn't the head coach. He did a nice job filling in, but Chris Beard, whether you like him or dislike him, and quite honestly, he's not a great guy off the court, right? With the whole, allegation, abuse, whatever. I don't care. The point is, his team, he built that team at Texas. Rodney Terry takes over, he takes them to the Elite Eight. How is that any different than the 49ers? Think about this. The starters, Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. Those are the 2 starters. They both get hurt. Brock Purdy comes in. He leads them to, well, wouldn't you know it? He leads them to the semifinal. And they lose. So here's my thing, okay? Interim is great. Sometimes you can find the next big thing. Kurt Warner, that is literally the epitome of when you go out, you get an interim guy, and he ends up working out. Kurt Warner, Hall of Famer. But not everybody is a Kurt Warner, right? Not everybody's a Kurt Warner. Sometimes when you stick in-house, or you stick with the guy that got you there, and you look at it as more of a reactionary way of going about it, you think with emotion, you think about how you felt when Brock Purdy took over and shocked the world, then you make kind of uninformed, uneducated, and reactionary decisions. And it's not to say Brock Purdy isn't a good quarterback. It's not to say he can't be good. But I think they need to be careful with this one, because in my opinion, you're looking at Trey Lance, they spent 2 first-rounders on this guy to go out and get him. And they haven't gotten anywhere near that value out of him. And now they're just like done with him. So I'm sorry. Like, I'm looking at it and it's like, you look at the 49ers, they don't get the blame. The Rams always get the blame. But meanwhile, Niners haven't won anything. Like, I can't stress that enough. Why do I feel like the Rams got more blame for Jared Goff, who actually took them to a Super Bowl, than the 49ers get blame for trading all the way up, selecting Trey Lance, who I would swear by to this day, I would swear by to this day, they did not want to draft Trey. They wanted to draft Mac Jones. They were embarrassed to when they got bullied into the selection and they don't believe in him. Trey Lance deserves better. But, I mean, we're not going to do that, right? This is why, by the way, when people watch my shows on YouTube, when people watch other people's shows on YouTube, see, the mainstream doesn't talk about this. That's why mainstream sports is somewhat dying, because you see the sports talk on YouTube. It's like people like myself and smaller YouTube channels will bring this up, but for whatever reason, the others don't. Like, to me, it is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. We're not talking about it enough. And I told you, we're going to be talking about multiple topics today. So since we're on the topic of quarterback, we're on the topic of trading, potentially trading up, I figured let's talk about Trey Lance too. Why don't the 49ers get to hate the Rams do? That trade was pitiful. If they're not going to use Trey Lance, that trade was absolutely dog water. Just like drafting Trey Sermon in the 3rd round and never using him and then cutting him. 49ers don't get penalized for that. They don't get in trouble. I mean, if they don't win anything with Christian McCaffrey, that trade also doesn't look very good. Christian McCaffrey's been great, but you got to at least win something with this. So, that's I wanted to say that. I'm hoping, as a fan of Trey Lance, as a believer in his talent and his ability, I'm hoping he gets out of there, because you know what I found is that there's what we like to call some what would I say, inconsistency. For every quarterback like every quarterback that Sean McVay develops, there's a quarterback he doesn't develop. But you only hear about the good stuff, right? I mean, like, you could argue, like, Sean McVay got blamed a little bit for Goff, but he didn't get a ton of blame. And I'm not saying that he deserves a ton of blame. Like, Kyle Shanahan is another guy where everyone focuses on what worked, but they don't focus on on what didn't work. And I think the big important thing that I'm trying to bring up here is that Kyle Shanahan failed on Trey Lance. Like, if this is the end of it, that's a colossal failure. That's a colossal failure. You did not develop Trey Lance. Sean McVay, he'll get some heat about Jared Goff, but at the end of the day, Jared Goff wasn't going anywhere with Jeff Fisher. If they didn't hire Sean McVay, I think Jared Goff would probably be a backup right now or out of the league. This is not a knock on Goff. This is what happens, by the way. This is what happens in the NFL and what happens to the quarterback ecosystem. I mean, you want to tell me this is how it works. Taylor Heineke was a 3rd string quarterback on the Battlehawks. 3rd. I remember Taylor Heineke doing shots of Bud Light seltzer in the locker room. Like, he was just gunning Bud Light seltzer after they won a game. That's what I remembered out of Taylor Heineke. And then Taylor Heineke goes to the right scenario, right situation, and now he ends up starting a bunch of games. I mean, that's the thing. If Daniel Jones went to an offense where they didn't want to use his legs, and he could never use his legs, dude wouldn't be starting. He wouldn't be $40 million making it. No. If Trey Lance went to a better situation, he could be a good quarterback. So what am I getting at here? I mean, it's very simple. It's that what we're finding is that just saying these guys always figure it out is not true. Kyle Shanahan gets credit for Elijah Mitchell, right? 5th rounder he developed. So he gets credit for Elijah Mitchell. He gets credit for Brock Purdy. But he doesn't get equally scrutinized for the failure of Trey Lance and for the failure of Trey Sermon in the 3rd round. But it's okay because he hit on late round picks. First off, we don't even know about Brock. We really do not know where Brock Purdy is going to go in his career. So we can't just call that a hit. I mean, I guess it's a hit by far because they got him so late, but it doesn't mean that he's 100% a given. But I want to bring it up because, like, same with Sean McVay. Is like we give him credit for developing Jared Goff, but then we don't say anything when he doesn't develop Bryce Perkins, right? And I mean, that's crucial. I'm saying, man, there's not, like, coaches aren't just straight up always consistent. There are guys that they're going to miss on, but it's the way that it's perceived. And it's not just those two either. Like I mentioned, like Heineke went from third string quarterback in the XFL before it got taken down due to COVID to then being a starter for Washington. I mean, so this is how I look at it, okay? With Trey Lance, at the end of the day, I think the Niners need to get rid of him now. They need to trade him immediately while he still has value, because if they do not trade him, his value is going to go down the tubes and they're going to have to cut him. So I would trade him immediately. Probably even before the draft, if I'm being real. But if the Niners don't do this, and by the way, they have not been great at driving up this guy's value. So if they don't do this in time, they're going to be in some trouble. Okay? I mean, to me, it is really, just think about the picks they could have right now if they didn't make that trade, or just think about where they'd be at if they still make the trade, but they actually, like, develop this guy. They give him a shot. I think it's easy to say Trey Lance is a bust, but I don't think Trey Lance is the issue here. I think they were bullied, and it shows a certain indecision by the 49ers organization. While we give them a lot of credit, and they get a lot of third-round picks because, the minority coaching hires, what we don't talk about enough are their misses. And this one, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, they'll get passes, but if this was an average franchise, this would be fireable. This would be a fireable offense. I mean, think about that. The 49ers, they get away with it because they're a really good football team. And, we talk about it. If they got Lamar Jackson, oh, man. If they got Lamar Jackson, they'd probably be the favorites to win it all. But that's what keeps them safe. If you had, like, say, I don't know, who's a good example in the AFC? Let's say New England. Like, Bill Belichick. Like, do you think if Bill Belichick traded... See, he got Mac Jones. They stayed at 15. They got Mac Jones. He fell into his lap. But if they traded multiple first-round picks for Trey Lance and didn't even really give him a chance to develop, I don't know, man. I don't know if Belichick would still be there. I'll be honest with you. That's a really bad look. That's wasting multiple drafts, especially with how good this 49ers team is. We keep talking, they're so great. Dude, they are. They have such a bevy of talent. They have great coaches. But my God, if they just had a quarterback, like a legit game-changing quarterback, they could be special. And I understood where the thought process was trying to go out and get Trey Lance. I understood that. I was the advocate for Trey Lance on this. Don't forget, on this channel, when we weren't sure what direction the Rams were going in, we thought, okay, they'll trade Jared Goff, maybe get a first-round pick. I was like, all right, let's go get Trey Lance. Wasn't that long ago. They get Stafford, which I'm not complaining about. But it's like, I don't think Trey Lance is the issue. Trey Lance is exactly what they needed, and I just don't think they had done a good enough job of developing him. So I'll stand by that. Not going to turn this into a 49ers show. I think we've talked about them a lot. But, yeah, I mean, you give credit where credit's due. But like I said, with the whole, Brock Purdy thing, be careful what you wish for, And I'll say this right now. UNC could have gone out and hired anybody in men's basketball to replace Roy Williams. They have so much money. They kept Hubert Davis. Hubert Davis led them as an 8 seed to the national title game, and they lost to Kansas, and then the next year they didn't even make the tournament. That doesn't mean he's a bad coach, but it does make you start to question, right? So all I'm saying is that sticking with the interim, sticking with the guy, you make a reactionary, emotional decision. Don't be surprised if it blows up in your face. And honestly, the Rams did that with Mark Bulger over Kurt Warner. But I digress. Anyway, so we talked about Will Levis. We talked about the potential of the Rams trading up to get him. We talked about Stafford's uncertainty. Something in the air feels off. Something is off. I mean, I think we're all in agreement of that. Most people in the comment section definitely are in agreement that there is something off with the whole Stafford thing. There is. Let's also talk about, and we talked about Trey Lance. So let's pivot away from the quarterbacks for a second. Odell Beckham Jr. Today, Les Snead gave a little bit of, some clarity, I guess, on Odell. And it's cool because every now and again, I'll hear things. I don't go out of my way to ask unless I really want to know. But I do have some sources that I contact, and I don't report because I don't want people to, I don't want to have my mentions blown up, because the way the NFL works is things can change on a dime. You have agents that'll use you for a story or, for a tweet that gets, it works for them. So I just didn't want to deal with it. Right. But Jordan Rodriguez had put it out today. Les Snead said today that the team has definitely kept Odell Beckham Jr. in their discussions. They have for the last year. They have outlined what they are willing to do contractually, but the sense I get is all waiting to see what he eventually decides. Not sensing a huge amount of urgency, as Beckham Jr. will also evaluate his options. The spring continues. I think Odell is going to have to determine his next chapter, said Snead. Rams have stayed in touch. So pretty much what I've heard as well. He doesn't have any reason to accept the first deal he has. He doesn't have any reason to leave. He doesn't have any reason to make a decision. It doesn't really have any reason to make any sort of decision right now. The draft is coming up. He doesn't have to sign. It's not like he's franchise tagged or, like Lamar is a little bit different, because Lamar Jackson being a quarterback, you typically want to get to your home team, wherever that's going to be, as soon as possible so you can, actually learn, the playbook and whatnot, and kind of, adapt with what's around you and everything. But so again, my point here is that Odell, based on what I was hearing, the Rams are still in the mix. The Rams want him. Odell is still interested in the Rams to a degree. So for me, monitor this as well. It's not over. It's not a guarantee. I think there are a lot of people that were just assuming because the Rams chose to go this route with their team building, that Odell wouldn't be interested. That's not necessarily the case. There's still some mutual interest. He also is very interested in the Jets, from what I've been told. Right now, I think it's between the Jets, the Rams, and the Chiefs. I've said that for a while. That's what I've been told. The Chiefs are always an interesting one. They're going to be the favorites in anything because they offer the chance to be a part of a dynasty. As long as they have Patrick Mahomes, they have a chance to win a Super Bowl every single season. So that is going to be, kind of a lure, if you will, to get people to go there. The idea of going back to New York for Odell is something that he covets. The Giants weren't as interested as he was hoping, and the Jets have stepped up, and they've shown a lot of interest. And I think also, keep this in mind, Rodgers has wanted to play with him for a while, and he was really, really close. He wanted to go to the Packers. He wanted to play with Rodgers, but he felt like the Rams were further along. Vaughn played a big role in getting him to L.A. Vaughn really talked him into, they had the idea they wanted to go there, and all of that. So whatever. But here's the main thing here. Okay. He wanted to play with Rodgers. He didn't get to. He went to LA. I don't know where this is necessarily going. I really don't. I think it's between those three teams. I think it could be either or. To me, if it's the Jets, I think it makes sense because of Rodgers and getting to play with him. If it's the Rams, I think it makes sense because you get to kind of reset the market. You're coming back to play with guys that you have synergy with. You go and you get to play with Stafford again and Kupp, and you have an opportunity to play off Kupp. So it's going to be easier for you to get open and whatnot. And then you have Andy Reid, and the Chiefs. I get to play with Mahomes. I get to play with Reid. They just won the Super Bowl. I don't know. I mean, I think Odell has some good options. Dallas, I think, is out. The Ravens are completely out because they don't even know who's going to be their quarterback. They're in a weird spot right now. I mean, there's not a lot of quarterbacks out there. And if they don't get an early pick, and that's the thing with the Ravens, if Lamar doesn't sign before the draft, they're not getting any compensation for him for this draft. They need to figure out who their quarterback is. And I'm sorry, but Tyler Huntley is not going to cut it. That fan base will eat them alive. What about the Bills? Yeah, so the Bills, I was told they're interested. I don't think they are as interested as they were. That's what I was told. Like, the Bills, they had a meeting with him last year. He went and I think he went to Josh Allen's house, and they had a dinner or whatever, and it was like serious interest, but it never happened. I don't know if it's going to happen. Like, I'll be honest with you, I don't know if it's going to happen this time around. There just seems to be less urgency. Like last year, the Bills felt like they were going to be a Super Bowl team. Then Vaughn got hurt, and it kind of ruined their kind of mindset. I'm sure they still thought they could win a Super Bowl, but when Vaughn got hurt, it kind of sucked the energy out of that locker room. And of course, the interest in Odell kind of waned a little bit. Right now, I don't know. I mean, like I said, they're definitely a team to look out for. I wouldn't be shocked if he went there. But the three teams I was told to have the best chance, the Rams in a return. He's not going back to Cleveland. I see Cleveland fans that think that's going to happen. It's not. He didn't choose Cleveland, by the way. For the record, he was traded there, and the only reason he made do of it is because Jarvis was there. So, and that's another one. That's another one here. Jarvis Landry, watch it wherever he goes. Maybe Odell follows him. That's another team to look out for, whoever signs Jarvis Landry, if anybody does. I don't know. I mean, I don't know why he wouldn't get signed, but, that's that. So, yeah, Odell news, Will Levis. I don't think the Rams are going to make that trade, but the Stafford stuff is really, like I said, there's just something off. Trey Lance, I don't know if he's going to get traded. I think they need to trade him ASAP while he still has some value, because if they don't start him, that value is going to go down the hill. It really is. So, yeah, those are some things there. Taylor Rapp was signed today by the Buffalo Bills. Rapp, a pseudo linebacker, a good third safety. I think it's a good signing. He signed for under $2 million. So this kind of goes back to my point. You draft a guy in the second round and you don't bring him back. He's under $2 million. Greg Gaines, David Edwards, Nick Scott being $1 million this year. Something about all of that really stings to me. That 2019 draft class going for literally nothing. Their compensatory picks are going to absolutely suck. And that's that. But they did actually sign somebody today. Although they were already on their team, they brought back Marquise Copeland. I think that move is underrated, and it's by far the best move they've made this offseason. In my opinion, Marquise Copeland is somebody that can start. He's somebody that you really feel great about because Eric Henderson just did such a nice job of developing him. He is a UDFA out of Cincy, and he started some games. He had an interception in the playoff game against Arizona. Copeland is a guy to look out for because he may not be the sexiest option for the Rams, but he's somebody that's going to get a lot of playing time on the defensive line. He might start, but I think he's probably going to be a rotational piece. But I think he's going to be important for them. He's good against the run. I think he got better as a pass rusher, throughout his time with the Rams. Will be interesting to watch how he develops. It's just a 1-year deal. It seems like the Rams really don't want to commit any longer than 1 year to anybody. So just a 1-year deal, but he could be back next year. We'll see how that goes. He is back this year, however, and I like him a lot. I really like Copeland. I think he's underrated, and I'm excited about him. So losing Taylor Rapp, that happened. Signing Marquise Copeland. There's definitely some stuff going on with the Rams. I don't think they're going to sign anybody out of the organization. Like I said, if they sign anybody, excuse me, it's going to be Troy Hill or John Johnson or OBJ. So it's going to be a return for John Johnson if they sign him. I'm still interested what they do. Looking at their defensive line, I feel like they're good. I know there are people that are going to want them to draft. And obviously, I'd love to have Ashawn Robinson back, but you got Donald, right? You got Bobby Brown III. You got Jonah Williams. You got Marquise Copeland. I think they maybe grab another guy, but for the most part, I think they feel pretty good about that. And then wherever, if Ernest Brown IV, if he plays on the defensive line, you have him, as well as Larrell Murchison, who they are really excited to have. Murchison is going to be on the team once again. He's a free agent, I believe, after the season. So that was kind of the perk of claiming him, is that if they claimed him and didn't just wait for him to clear waivers, if he clears waivers, his contract's null and void and he's a free agent. But if he doesn't clear waivers and you claim him, you get his contract. So because you claimed Murchison, you have his contract, and he's still on his rookie deal. He still has another year left. I thought it was smart by the Rams. He's a good player. He was a fun prospect coming out of, I believe, NC State it was. Could be wrong on that. I probably have to double check. But I liked Murchison. And I still like Murchison. So excited about him. He'll be back, and excited about Copeland signing. What can we expect from the Rams moving forward? It is a little dead right now, but maybe it's the calm before the storm. They weren't at the Utah Pro Day for whatever reason, but they were at BYU. And I believe they weren't at Oregon either, I don't believe. So they've gone to some pro days. They've missed on some pro days, all of that, whatever. They've met with some guys. I can find the list, but I haven't been keeping track of a list this year. It's a lot. It really is. And I think the thing that stopped me from keeping track of the list this year, if I'm being honest with you, is everyone at the Senior Bowl they met with. So right off the bat, everyone from the Senior Bowl they met with. But according to Turf Show Times, Los Angeles Rams 2023 pre-draft meetings, these are the meetings. I don't think these are, maybe they're private visits. I don't think so. But based on this, they met with Desjuan Johnson on February 24th. He's got some fun tape out of Toledo. I haven't watched a ton of the whole draft class or whatever. I'm on the edge defenders. I'm almost done with that. We'll have a video tiering them up and everything, ranking them. But I haven't watched everybody. But Desjuan Johnson, he looks a little bit, not Donald, but he looks kind of like Geno Atkins a little bit. He is definitely somebody I have my eyes on. They also met with Jake Bobo. They met with Nolan Smith. Nolan Smith is not going to be available. I'm sorry. I know people really, really like him. I like him too. He's my third edge defender in this draft. There is no way that guy with the pro day he had, or the measurables he tested with, there's no way, there's not a reality that guy is available after the top 15. Okay, he's going to be a top 15 pick, and he's probably going to be top 10. And the fact is, he's undersized, but he's an elite athlete, and he's so committed to stopping the run. I think people are going to absolutely love that. Scouts love it. I think, somebody's going to fall in love with him. I think he goes off the board of the Falcons at 8th overall, but that's just my opinion. They also met with Tank Dell, wide receiver out of Houston. So, I mean, that's an interesting one. The Rams drafted a wide receiver out of Houston in, I believe, 2008. It was Donnie Avery. Elijah Green, defense lineman. Corey Trice, the bigger defensive back. Aiden O'Connell. So they met with a quarterback. I think we talked about that. O'Connell is interesting. He's built kind of like Goff. He plays kind of like Goff. He's not super mobile. They also met with Payne Durham, who is kind of a good late round tight end option. They met with kicker BT Potter. So that's interesting there. Ade Adebawar on March 18th, the Northwestern, freakish defensive lineman. I really don't even know where you would play him. To me, I don't even look at him as an edge guy. I'm seeing him listed as edge everywhere. I kind of grade him as an interior defensive line. So I'll be watching him further, but he won't be in my edge crop of guys, so to speak. Luke Schoonmaker from Michigan they met with. He had a really good, I thought he had a pretty good combine. Will McDonald, obviously love this one, but he was at the Senior Bowl. So, that's the thing. It's since he was at the Senior Bowl, what does this tell me? Did they just meet him at the Senior Bowl? It says March 21st they met with him. That is exciting. Will McDonald IV would be a great pickup. He'd be my number one guy on the board at pick 36. He's my number 2 overall edge defender in this draft. I am very high on him, and I don't see how he gets out of the first round. I think he offers way too much, and it's just a pipe dream to expect him to get out of the first round. Defensive interior lineman MJ Anderson on March 21st. Trey Palmer, the Nebraska wide receiver, March 23rd. Julius Brents at the Combine they met with. He is the Kansas State defensive back, taller guy. Jaron Hall they had a private meeting with March 24th. That's exciting. Jaron Hall is somebody that I look at, if you want to draft a quarterback that could potentially become a franchise quarterback with your development, then Jaron Hall is that guy, because I don't think you don't have to pick him super early. I think he's going to be there on day 3. This might be the case where the Rams can get him in the 5th round, or they have to package 2 5ths and move up in the 4th and get him. Either way, when you look at Hendon Hooker, I like Hooker a lot. I have him graded higher than Hall, but I think Hall's upside is more. I think Hooker has a higher floor, which is good for, the capable backup role behind Stafford. Like day 1, he can back up Stafford and you feel good about it. But also think about this. He's probably going to go day 2, early day 2. I think he might go in the 2nd round. So since I don't think Hooker's going to be an option because they have so many needs. With that said, I think Jaron Hall makes the most sense in the middle of the draft and finding a way to make that happen. Then you have Carrington Valentine, who is just blowing up right now. Everyone's talking about him, had a great pro day. March 26th, the Rams met with him. So yesterday, I believe, probably at the pro day, I would imagine. He blew up out of Kentucky. And it looks like that's it. So I don't know. It's those are the meetings that are listed. And again, you can just say everybody met with the Rams from the Senior Bowl, but it's good to know that Will McDonald IV met with the Rams post Senior Bowl. That shows continued interest, and these meetings they're not smoke screens. Let me just make that very clear, because I've heard that before, and it's not to say they can't be, but if you're picking 36th, I'm sorry, you don't give a crap about throwing smoke. Right? I mean, you're not doing anything for show. You want to get to know these guys. It's the speed dating before marriage. So, yeah. I mean, Will McDonald, they have interest in. Out of all these guys, McDonald, Adebawar, Tank Dell, Nolan Smith are all the guys that they probably... I'm not going to say they probably think will fall to the 2nd, but could fall to the 2nd. Or could be there in the 2nd round. Will McDonald, I just don't see it. I just don't see how he falls out of the 1st. I might mock him to the Rams anyway because I love the fit, but I just don't see it. If you want to trade up, I don't want to trade up. 2 more 1st round pick. No, that's not how that works. It was a 2nd, so 36th, the next year's 2nd. But I don't want to trade up anyway. I don't want it. I mean, The Rams have way too many needs to just, we're just going to throw caution to the wind and trade up for a guy. No, I think that's stupid. That would be a mistake, in my opinion. That would be a costly mistake, in my opinion. Tui Polutu. Tua Polutu or whatever. Yeah, I just watched him. So he's interesting. Watching him, I'll have a video out on him soon. He has his moments. I'm not as high on him as many people are. I mean, he's certainly an edge because I saw people were saying that he should play in the interior. I don't see that. I mean, he weighed in around 260. That's not interior defensive line weigh-in. I don't know. He's an athlete. He's fast. He's quick-footed. He's got some power, not a ton. He just didn't really blow up on tape. I was expecting with how he's been talked to, towards me, that he was going to be this big deal, and I didn't see it. Great question. Yeah, honestly, I think if anybody gets picked out of the guys that we interviewed, I think it would probably be a guy like Cody Mauch. I could see Eric Gray. I could see all of them to a degree, but Cody Mauch I'd probably put the most. Like if I had to put money on them or there was a gun to my head, I'd probably say Cody Mauch. But that's all I'd be able to really, because I mean, I feel like Mauch would be a really good fit. It's not always about that. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, I could see it happening. I'm not saying I'd like it, but I could see it, By the way, Fernando, I am so sorry. I don't know what happened, but I guess I just missed your super chats. So appreciate the 2 here. Appreciate the 4 overall. We should get Trey Lance under McVay. Yeah, that wouldn't be possible because the 49ers aren't going to trade him in the division, but definitely would love to have Trey Lance as the future. That would be hilarious. Let's see. With OBJ, it sounds like he didn't like the offer. Yeah, I'm not really sure with him. Like, I mean, he could have gotten lowballed. That's certainly a possibility. I'm not really sure. I think he's just waiting. I think he's just enjoying the process. I think he definitely wants to come back and play football because I've seen people say he doesn't want to play football. He just wants to be in the news clippings. And first off, I mean, I don't know. I disagree, but that's just me. Yeah, so 1 second. I'm with you. I'd really be annoyed if they did him dirty. Like, that's my concern. That's legitimately my concern is that's what they're going to do. No, I don't think you cut Tyler Higbee. I think that they want to build up the offense. They're going in on the offense. I don't think they're going to cut Tyler Higbee. God, this Packers-Jets thing is taking forever. It's kind of annoying. I wish they would just figure it out. I mean, Payne Durham is probably the leader in the clubhouse since they met with him. And they could probably get him in like the 6th round. So I would probably say Payne Durham right now. But I haven't watched tight ends. I haven't watched any of the tight ends. So I don't know who would be the best fit. I don't know who they should. But that's what I think that right now feels the most likely. Hopefully soon. I mean, like I said, not really. Don't have a ton of money to me right now to shell out for a PO box, but we'll see. Still waiting to hear back from that job. So that's also another thing. If I get that job, then yeah, PO box will be sooner than later. I appreciate it though. Thank you. It's not necessarily 2023, but like it's just there's something off. Like you're seeing him out there and he's doing all this LA stuff. I'm just hoping that they're not about to backstab him. I mean, that's the way like this business is. Jared Goff didn't really know what was going to happen until I think, what was he, on a plane or something? I don't even know. I mean, they called Jared Goff and like probably celebrated, I would imagine, right after. That's the business. That is the business side of it. So, I just hope they do right by Stafford and they keep him around. If he can still play, they keep him around, and yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Everyone focuses so much on the offensive line and how they need to get better offensive linemen, which, okay, but first off, they need to stay healthy. I don't think it's a lack of talent on the offensive line. I think they have too many guys that I would call injury prone. But my big thing is that, yes, exactly like you're saying, if you're not running the ball and you're constantly throwing the ball, teams know what you're doing. The Rams become predictable on offense. When you become predictable and you're already having injury and depth issues on the offensive line, I can't see that getting any better. So, yeah, I agree. I mean, consistent run game is probably one of the best things that they could do. That's a good question. I mean, I think the only one I'd be okay trading up for is if by some gift, some way possible, Anthony Richardson fell way down the board, or Will McDonald. I mean, if they felt they had to trade up to get Will McDonald at like 31, I'll have a little bit of an issue to an extent if they trade up, but if they announce the pick is Will McDonald and they move up from 36 to 31, they're probably not giving up a second rounder. It's probably going to be a third, and it's probably going to be next year or something like that, right? So with that said, I'd be all for that, because if they're moving up to get him at 31, that means they have, knowledge, intel that somebody was going to go up and get him. So securing him. Also keep this in mind, if the Rams really want to, getting that 5th-year option, locking that in is really not a bad idea. So if they really love a player and they don't want to have him on just a 4-year deal and they want to lock in that 5th-year option as an option, they could absolutely trade up to 31. I mean, that pick definitely has value. If you guys are wondering why I'm saying 31, not 32, it's because one of the picks was nullified due to the whole Stephen Ross, Miami Dolphins, Tom Brady tampering, all sorts of stuff, I think, on that front. It was Tom Brady tampering, trying to get him to go to Miami, and then the whole thing with Brian Flores, trying to tell him to tank or whatever. They lost the first-round pick for that, so... Jake, do you think the Jets are scared to give up a lot of picks for Rodgers, knowing that he might retire after the season? No, I'm not. I don't think they're going to give up a lot of picks anyway, but I think really they're trying to make it, they're trying to get as fair of a deal as possible, because Rodgers' contract is quite honestly ridiculous. It was entirely to get him to stay. It was honestly the Green Bay Packers begging him to stay. And now that they're trying to move it, it's going to be really difficult to make everybody a winner or everybody happy on both sides. I don't think it's going to happen. I do think the trade happens, but I think the Packers are going to be eating a lot of money, because the Jets are going to be eating a lot of money by virtue of this. But I also think the Packers are going to be eating on money, and I don't think they're going to get as good of a return as people think. The problem is there are a lot of Packers fans that are just assuming that second rounder the Jets acquired for Elijah Moore is going to be theirs. Like, oh, two more second rounders to go for Rodgers. You're not getting this giant package. It's not happening. Rodgers' deal is insane. I mean, if you thought, Jalen Ramsey was hard to trade or Jared Goff, Aaron Rodgers' contract is nuts. I mean, the guaranteed money on that front is just nuts. So I'd be all for Deuce Vaughn. I love Deuce Vaughn. He's one of my favorite players, I think, in this draft entirely, which says a lot because you can see the Jayhawk logo in the background. I am a Jayhawk football fan, and to say a Kansas State guy, the arch rival of Kansas, or one of the arch rivals of Kansas, is one of your favorites in the draft. It tells you a lot about their. But I also really like FAU. Like, I like Felix Anudike-Uzomah. I think he's a great prospect. I have him as, I think, my third or fourth overall edge defender. Fourth. So, Jake, I've been a Rams fan for 46 years now, and yes, something is up. But I truly feel it's going to be a couple of huge signing no one saw coming. Something's definitely up. I mean, I know that's broad. I know that's a cop-out. Like, all right, Jake, you're not going to tell me what you think it is, but you're just going to say something's up repeatedly? Yes, I am. I'm going to. Because something is up. There's something off. I can't stress it. Something that is off with this offseason. It doesn't mean that they're about to go and, get all that debt back. It doesn't mean that they're about to make some ridiculous splash. They can't do all of that. But like I said, monitor the Stafford trade. I wouldn't like it at all. I think it's a bad look for the organization, but I don't know. His elbow's good, not great, not amazing. His elbow's perfect. Nope, good. I don't know. Not a fan. I am going to say that's tough. Who's going to be the worst team next year? It's not the Rams. Even if you want it to be them to get Caleb Williams, it's not going to be the Rams. They have way too much talent. Even still, they have too much talent. You have to understand the worst team in the league would have to finish like 2-15. Who is going to have that first pick? Well, I mean, let's look. NFC West, Arizona is the only one I can think of. NFC East, Washington, but they have a decent enough team to win more than 4 games, I would say. Okay, then you look at the North. Nobody there. Bears could be bad, but I don't think they're going to be horrible. And then the Bucs no, Panthers no, Falcons no, Saints no. So then you look at the AFC and you're like, okay, who's the worst team? Houston? I mean, if Bryce Young, I think Bryce Young's going to Houston. I don't know. I don't see why the Texans aren't going to draft him though, so they could trade him. But I don't know. I don't think the Texans. Okay, the Colts. No, I don't see it. Jaguars, no. Titans. I don't know. Titans could be a dark horse team to get the worst pick in the draft, or the best pick in the draft, be the worst team. They could be a dark horse. I don't know. To me, I feel like it's the Cardinals. It's easily going to be the Cardinals, and they're going to have to make a decision. Do they draft Caleb Williams, or do they stick with Kyler Murray and trade the pick? Because, I mean, that depends. Kyler Murray wasn't drafted by this coach. This coach was not a part of a regime that drafted Kyler Murray. That connection's gone. I don't know. Yeah, but will the Raiders be that bad, though? That's my thing. Like, will the Raiders be that bad? That's bad. Like, if you're number 1 overall pick, like, you're going to have to literally lose 14 plus games. I just don't. The Cardinals are the only team that come to mind that could even do that, really. I know there's going to be a team, and there could be a big injury that leads to that, but I don't know, man. It's not. What are the odds? So I don't see. Okay, well, I guess don't put in 2024 NFL draft number one overall pick odds, because you'll just get the presidential election odds and the MLB draft lottery odds. Yeah. So I don't know. Honestly, I don't think the Falcons, because Arthur Smith. I think he'll have him on the path to success. I like Arthur Smith. You know what else I like? Guys, be sure to, if you're enjoying this, be sure to subscribe. Also, be sure to hit the thumbs up. 55 likes. Let's see if we can get that up a little bit more. I have over 130 people in here. Appreciate y'all. Yeah, I hate the tanking. I'm definitely not down to tank. Zeke hasn't signed with anybody yet. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't really think, like, tanking, does tanking even exist in the NFL? I don't see. I don't know. It's such a small sample size. You only play, 17 games. I don't know anything about Drake May. Yeah, I couldn't tell you my thoughts on Drake May because I haven't watched any bit of him. I haven't gotten to Josh Downs yet. Well, okay, I saw one game of Drake May, but I wasn't paying attention to him. I was just watching a defensive player. I think it was Miles Murphy tape. That's probably what it was. All right, what's exactly. I don't really think it's an option either. Okay. Let's pivot here. We're going to talk about a new topic here. Okay. So, I got to say, I think watching the XFL and the USFL and watching the AAF and these spring football leagues, I've come to the conclusion that, I mean, it sucks, but I just feel it's not that they're not being taken seriously, but I feel like you have players that are playing for their career lives. You have players that are playing because this is their last shot, right? Their back is against the wall. But you have these coaches that are just hired as big names. It's like a post-career side gig, if you will. I think these coaches half-ass it, if I'm being honest. Could be wrong, and if one of those coaches wants to come to me and tell me I'm wrong, fine. I mean, I know one of the coaches, I won't even get into that. But basically, today, right? My guy, yes, that's where I was going with this. My guy, Kyle Sloter, who's been on this show. He's a friend of this show. We talk all the time. Kyle was cut by the Arlington Renegades today. And now I've heard things like, in the past when I defend him or whatever, it's, oh, well, you're just saying that because, you guys are bros or whatever. Okay, here's the thing. I'm not saying that Kyle Sloter needs an NFL starting quarterback job. I understand he's got to pay his dues. But last year, you could have argued he was the best. Well, I think you should definitely say he was one of the best quarterbacks in the USFL. So here's my thing with Sloter. Okay. Sloter played for this offense. He played in this offense. First off, he wasn't even the starter out of the gates, which was stupid. And it just shows that these coaches don't know what they're doing. They started Drew Plitt. Drew Plitt has just not been very good. I don't even think they won a game with Drew Plitt. But anyway, back to my point. Sloter started yesterday, and he started all of the drives. They decided to have every 2 drives or whatever handed off to the next guy. They had Sloter hand it off, and they had Plitt throw. And then today he was cut, and I won't get into why that is, but he was. And I just got to say, watch. It doesn't take, much. Watch one of their games. I mean, the Arlington Renegades are scoring nothing. That team has talent. Go back and watch the Breakers last year with Sal Cannella, the tight end. Look at what he did with Kyle Sloter. Guys on that team have talent. So what's the issue? Well, the issue is that Hayes and Chuck Long, who I think played for the Rams years ago, they do not call a good game plan. Hayes, who I think he was the head coach for the Battlehawks before the XFL shut down. Dude, the offense calls 2 plays. They call 2 plays the entire game. It's the same plays over and over and over again. There's no creativity. So people are like, why isn't Kyle Sloter having a good year? Because it's the most dumbed down offense. As Todd Gurley would call it, a high school offense. So why am I bringing this up? Well, I'm bringing it up because, of course, my guy Kyle Sloter got cut. Probably the best thing that could have happened to him because, quite honestly, the Arlington Renegades aren't going to win shit. They're just not. They're not. They're not going to. That coaching staff is a joke, and I don't take them seriously. Let's be honest here, okay? Someone mentioned Wade Phillips is giving 110%. I'm not saying that Wade isn't. And I'm not saying that every coach is half-assing it, but most of them are. And you see it. The problem is we don't have enough coaches that are in these spring leagues coaching like their life depends on it. Like their coaching career, this is it. This is their last shot. Like Hines Ward is trying to make it. He's trying to make it in the NFL. He wants to be a head coach. Hines Ward is a guy I'd want to play for. Bob Stoops, not a guy I'd want to play for. Because Bob Stoops, first off, all you need to know is his offensive coordinator, his offense in general. They're not doing anything. The defense is killing it in Arlington. They're great. They deserve all the credit. The offense has talent, but the offense doesn't move the ball. The offense is predictable. You could call a better offense on Madden. And that's my issue. It's not just your buddy got cut. It's the fact that this is an issue. Because this is the guy, these are these guys' last shot. And you don't have these coaches that match the level of intensity and urgency these players have. You have these guys look at it as golf at the end of their career, retirement. This is a post-retirement job. I mean, some of these coaches are barely in the building. Think about that. And then they go out and they look nice on camera and they coach their games, but they're barely in the building throughout the week. That's a problem. Like Taylor Heineke, right? Taylor Heineke, like I mentioned earlier, was a third-string quarterback with the Battlehawks. Never played. Jordan Ta'amu, as much as I liked him and he played well for the Battlehawks, hasn't done anything in the NFL. He hasn't. Heineke has. Did the XFL give Heineke a shot in the NFL? No. Heineke had tape that was left over from his time in the NFL in preseason, and a team took a shot on him. Started with Carolina, and then he followed Rivera to Washington. But, like, as far as I'm concerned, the XFL flat out freaking missed him. So it's not me trying to be negative. It's not me trying to say don't watch the XFL. But, like, I watched Bob Stoops. I watched him on sidelines. He's an actor. Doesn't do anything. Like, just think about it. These guys aren't getting coached up. The offenses are a joke. Not all of them, but some of them are. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because it's got to be brought up, because it's bullshit. You have these guys that are working their tails off, like Sloter, right? And this is their shot. I mean, do you think Sloter wants to play in spring? No. He's not getting the opportunity in the NFL. Does he want to be a third quarterback or even a second? No, he wants to eventually elevate him to the point where he can compete like Heineke. That's the route these guys want to go in. That is what... And like I said, the quarterback ecosystem is so damaged, I don't think it's fixable because these coaches aren't great. And then the offensive line, these guys aren't great either. Go and watch the Breakers last year if you don't believe me. Sloter did everything he could. He played with injury after injury. The offensive line was horrible. They could not block for him. He was getting hit every single 2 seconds. And that's the problem. So at what point does this spring league... This movement get picked up by the NFL, because that's the only way I see this working. Because the NFL isn't just going to be like, yeah, we're going to hire Bob Stoops because he's going to get people to watch. Guys, look at who they're hiring. Like, for real. Bob Stoops is a coach in the XFL to sell people on the XFL. He's a big name. You got Bob Stoops in Arlington, Texas. Like, people know him. They're like, oh, yeah, Bob Stoops is there. That's the problem. I don't want Bob Stoops. I want a coach that I don't know. I want nobody coaches. I want no-name coaches that are trying to make it and will coach their ass off. And they will be in the organization. They will be in the facility 24/7. That is the problem with the XFL, and it continues to be the problem with those spring leagues. It's constantly these celebrity coaches. The players take it seriously. Not all the coaches do. Remember that one guy? Last year for, what was it, the Pittsburgh Maulers? Dude, he cut a player because he wanted a sandwich. Do you remember? Or he wanted pizza. Do you remember that? He got cut because he wanted a slice of pizza. And they said he was being disrespectful. And I've heard there have been guys that have gotten cut in the spring league for being disrespectful. That's pathetic. These are grown men. They're being treated like kids. It's like the adults don't even care. It's a joke. So yeah, I am a little heated that Sloter got cut. But I wanted to bring it up because I feel like it speaks to a larger issue. And the issue is that the spring league is supposed to be developing these guys. Right? The spring league is supposed to be developing. It's supposed to be giving these guys a shot. That's what Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson constantly says, giving these guys a shot. And I just don't feel like that's what's happening. Like, are they getting a shot? Yes. But do you think being on the Arlington Renegades, running that high school offense, helped Kyle Sloter get to the NFL and stay there? No. That tape was awful because he's running a high school offense. Last week, he drove down the field 98 yards and won the game. This week, he's benched and cut. But yeah, by all means, this spring league stuff is going very well. And actually, for the most part, I would say some of it is. Because guys on the defensive side, I mean, think about how poor these offensive play callers are. The defenses look so good. Look at it. I mean, the defenses are getting turnovers every which way. But yeah, it's BS, man. It is absolutely BS. I feel for Kyle. I mean, I've talked to him. He's not like upset or anything, whatever. This is just from me, but I just think it's BS, man. Yeah, exactly. You know, in those interviews, pass more, do this. Yeah, it's BS, man. It's just, you know, want to push the ball down the field more. Oh, I'm seeing more opportunities to do this. Like, you could see him in the interviews, and the coaches, they don't know what they're doing. Like, I mean, the offensive coordinator has no idea what he's doing. None. It's just, I don't know, man. It's upsetting because I want it to work. I liked the AAF. You know, I liked the XFL the first time, like the first recent comeback they had. And I like the USFL to a degree. But I just feel like it's just ultimately not doing what it should be doing. I think it's hurting quarterbacks more than it's helping them. It's hurting them physically because these offensive linemen are not very good. The defense, let me just say this right now. The defensive linemen are astronomically better than the offensive linemen in spring leagues, period. Full stop. Offensive line is not good enough in the spring leagues. It doesn't mean there's not talent, but think about it. You now have to create a 5-man offensive line out of guys that are trying to make it in this league, or trying to make it in the NFL. These are guys that have been cut 8, 9, 10 times. And you're trying to create an offensive line with 5 of those guys and then depth. You're not going to have superstars. And guess what? All the offensive tackles, all the offensive guards that are playing in that spring league, they're either college kids that they just got drafted in the NFL and they had 1 year, they had a cup of coffee and they got cut. And then they looked at it like, all right, I need a reset. I need to get reps. Or they're these veterans that are just not coveted by the NFL. And while I love player development and I love the opportunity of these guys getting a second shot, the offensive lines kill. They kill the quarterbacks. So it hurts the quarterbacks physically. Then it hurts them mentally because while they're getting killed and they're getting intercepted because they're hit while they're throwing, right? It's hurting them mentally because it's like, wow, am I even good? I'm completely failing in the spring league. This is what I do with my chance. So that's happening. They're getting physically injured. And then on top of it, think about this. This is important here. The offense. You could have the best guy. And I'll say this right now. I don't care. Jared Goff could play in this spring league and he wouldn't be blowing it up. And you know why? Because if he played on the Arlington Renegades, they'd be having him handing off every which way. They don't throw the ball. They don't go downfield. It's check down after check down. It's check down, hand it off. Check down, hand it off. Check down, hand it off. Hand it off, hand it off, hand it off, check down. Like their offense literally has 2 plays. They just run different variations. Like it's like I had a hard time watching it because I'm rooting for Kyle and I like some guys on there. I like Sal Cannella. You know, he was with the Breakers. But I'm sorry, man. It's constant. And like, I don't care if it's Jared Goff, Stafford, whoever. Like if you're forced to run what they're telling you to run and you can't go off script, then I mean, you're not going to be able to score points because those offensive guys, they're not good at it. And I don't remember the guy's name. Was it Charlie Hayes? I don't know. I'll look it up. Hayes Arlington. One of the guys played for the Rams, Chuck Long, Jonathan Hayes. Okay. Jonathan Hayes was the head coach and general manager of the Battlehawks in 2020. Before that, this is his career. Oklahoma, he's a tight ends and special teams coach. So Bob Stoops brought him in. He had a good connection with him. Oh, it's my buddy. Let's bring him in. So he's a tight ends and special teams coach. Then he's a tight ends coach at the Bengals for 15 years. And then suddenly is a head coach all of a sudden in the XFL. Right? So he's a head coach in the XFL. And now he's a co-offensive coordinator. Well, what about him makes him qualified to call plays in the XFL? Like, what about that makes him qualified? Like, sure, he's coached Pro Bowlers. He coached Tyler Eifert. He coached Jermaine Gresham. He was the head coach of the East team in the East-West Shrine Bowl in 2018. The head coach and general manager of the Battlehawks in the XFL. They had a good run. But it's like, I mean, why is he calling offensive plays? He's just not good. Like, I'm sorry, he's just not a good play caller. I don't know, man. It's sad, honestly. It's sad. I hate it for these guys. They deserve better. I mean, like I said, Chuck Long, Arlington Renegades. He's the other play caller. By the way, Chuck Long also coached, 4 or 5 years. 4 or 5 years with Bob Stoops. So this is what I said, is that I feel like it's a bunch of guys who are dying to save their career, their football career. And the XFL is just a bunch of coaches that are buddies. And it's like either, hey, post-retirement, this is fun. Or they're giving these guys an opportunity by name. They weren't great. And, it's familiarity. Like Chuck Long, and yeah, he played with the Rams in 1990, but Chuck Long is former Bob Stoops guy. He was actually a head coach at San Diego State. He was an offensive coordinator for the Jayhawks. Oh, get this. He was Jonathan Hayes. That was his offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. You can't make it up, man. You can't make it up. So it's ridiculous. There's what development is happening when you're just hiring your buddies? This is the problem. This coaching staff, it's guys from Oklahoma. It's Bob Stoops' disciples. Like, how does that help? I don't know. I mean, Battlehawks defensive back coach is also there, Tim Lewis. It's just a bunch of guys that know each other. That's what's happening. I don't know if it's everywhere. I don't know if it's every single team in the XFL, but it sure feels that way in the spring leagues. I don't know. I understand having certain guys, certain guys in your coaching staff that whatever, but it's just, I don't know. I question it. I really do. What's another one? Vegas Vipers. Let's see. The Vegas Vipers. So Rod Woodson is coaching this team. And let's see. What is this team right now? Are they any good? I don't think the Vipers are any good right now. But this is what I'm talking about, though. Like, Rod Woodson is coaching. Nothing against him. I'm not saying he can't coach. I don't know if he can, to be honest with you. But, like, he was a cornerback coach in 2017 for the Raiders. Like, how do you go from a 2017 cornerback coach, not coaching for 6 years, and then becoming the head coach and general manager of a spring league team? This is what I'm talking about. They hired big names. That's what they did. I mean, at least the St. Louis Battlehawks, they've actually had some good out of it. Anthony Becht, he was in the NFL. He wasn't like a huge name in the NFL. He did play for the Rams. And he's got Leroy Glover, Chris Claiborne. So that's cool. I didn't even know that. Those are guys that he obviously played with on the Rams. I liked Claiborne. I also liked Leroy Glover. But yeah, Becht played for the Jets, Tampa, the Rams for a year. Apparently that 2008 year, he got really close with the Rams because, he's now coaching in St. Louis. But, he was a tight ends coach for the Fleet with Mike Martz in 2019, and now he's the head coach. Like, what led to that? And I'm happy for him because he's doing well, right? But what leads to that? You know what I'm saying? Like, where are these coaches coming from? Let's just Houston Roughnecks, Wade Phillips, happy for Wade. Wade is somebody that's at least coached recently. Like, Wade was a defensive coordinator for the Rams. He was an interim coach in 2013. Some of these guys have never even been coordinators, and they're getting head coaching jobs. Wade is having fun. Wade clearly wants to be there, right? Like the Seattle Sea Dragons, Jim Haslett. Jim Haslett's a former head coach. Okay. Jim Haslett last coached in the NFL in 2021. He was an inside linebackers coach. He was a linebackers coach. He was a consultant at Penn State, defense coordinator. He was a coach at the Florida Huskers, interim head coach of the Rams. Okay. Haslett's at least been a coordinator before. He's had multiple head coaching opportunities. He's 67 and wants to continue coaching. I got no issue with that. Still feels somewhat like a grab there. Like, okay, Hines Ward, I would say feels like a big name grab, but Hines Ward's also been a guy that has been coveted by teams. And he's been a coach. Like, he was a wide receivers coach for Florida Atlantic. Now, he hasn't been a coordinator. How does he become a head coach? He's a guy that they feel is kind of an up-and-coming 47-year-old coach. We'll see what ends up happening there. The Guardians, who's their coach, Terrell Buckley. So Buckley is a guy that was just a cornerbacks coach at Ole Miss. He's never had experience being a coordinator. College football Hall of Famer. Like, that's probably looking, okay, this is a guy that, is a name in college and whatnot. And I think that, again, feeds to the issue. Yeah, Hines Ward was interviewed by the Texans. Thank you. I knew that was the case. I think that feeds into the issue, though. I think this is too connected to college. Like that, that's an issue right there. So then you look at the DC Defenders, and someone brought up Reggie Barlow. Well, Reggie Barlow was the head coach at Virginia State, like you mentioned, 2016 to 2021, head coach at Alabama State, right? So Barlow is exactly the type of coach I'm talking about. Barlow's the type of guy that I'm talking about. He was out of coaching since 2021. He comes back. He's the head coach of the DC Defenders. That's what I'm talking about. That's a guy, if you want to root for anybody, root for Reggie Barlow. Seems like this is somebody I want to root for. But that's the problem. So for one Reggie Barlow, you have about a bunch of 5, 6, 7 Bob Stoops, and you wonder why the product isn't better. I don't know, man. That's my thoughts on the XFL and, these college whatever. I knew that, and for whatever reason I didn't see it there. But yeah, Ricky Prohl, yeah, I remember that. Thank you so much. Appreciate the 5. I know the Rams met with Nathaniel Dell and Brents at the Combine. What positions do you think they'll address earliest in the draft? Great question. I think they're going edge in the second round, 36th overall. I think they address quarterback on day 3. I think they address running back on day 3. I think it'll probably be edge, a corner, and an offensive lineman on day 2. So corner, edge, corner, and offensive lineman, maybe double dipping on edge, but I think it's going to be edge, corner, and offensive line. I don't know. The problem with the USFL is I was looking, I'm like, I don't even know anybody. That's a big issue. The USFL, I may know their coaches, although I haven't really looked. Who are the coaches for the USFL? Key players to know. Okay, let's look at the teams. The Stallions, did they bring back the same coach? Okay, so the Stallions, I know at quarterback, Alex Magoo is still there, and Jamar Smith, and that's it. So I know those guys at quarterback. Houston Gamblers. Where's a quarterback? Montel Cozart. He played at Kansas. He also transferred to Boise State. That's the only one I know there. So, okay. I know Cozart. I know Magoo and Jamar Smith for the Stallions. Do I know anybody for the Memphis? Memphis Showboats are new. That's definitely a new team. Cole Kelly. Okay. Southeastern Louisiana. I liked him in the draft. Brady White out of Memphis. Okay. I know those two. Guys. Let's see. Anybody else that I would know? Oh, Ryan Willis. He also played at Kansas. He transferred to Virginia Tech. So I know those guys at quarterback. Michigan Panthers. Carson Strong. Okay. I know Carson Strong. Josh Love. He played for the Rams. Eric Berrier. Okay. Quarterbacks looking all right so far. Michigan Panthers got some guys that are interesting. New Jersey Generals. Nope, don't know who that is. DeAndre Johnson. I do know who that is. And Kyle Lauletta, I know who that is. Okay. Who else? Breakers. Who's with the Breakers? Akil Glass from Alabama A&M. I remember him. Davis Cheek from Elon. I do not know him. And McLeod Bethel Thompson, the 34-year-old from Sacramento State. Yeah. Akil Glass is interesting. That's probably the guy who I would start, but whatever. Okay. Maulers. Pittsburgh Maulers. Quarterback. I don't know any of these guys. Nobody I know. Troy Williams, Utah. Don't know him. Oh, James Morgan, Florida International. I know him. He was drafted by the Jets and we interviewed him. Connor Sampson from Western Illinois. I don't know. And Chase Forsad from Nicholas State. I don't know at all. And then the last team, the Stars. Case Cookus, Rams quarterback, fourth string quarterback. He is going back to the Stars. Kevin Thompson. God, that name sounds familiar. I don't know why. Washington. Maybe he was on the Breakers last year. I don't know. Vad Lee from James Madison sounds familiar. Yeah, I don't know. If Kyle, honestly, if Kyle wanted to come back to the USFL, not saying he would, and I haven't really talked to him much about it, but if there was a team, the Gamblers maybe? Yeah, Cozart. No, there was a team that was the Showboats probably, right? Who's the Memphis Showboats? Cole Kelly's there. Ryan Willis. All right, I knew them. The Breakers, honestly. Coming back to the Breakers would probably make the most sense. What's up, LA Rams? That feels like a pick they shouldn't make. I just don't think he's gonna. I don't know. I don't think he's gonna make a huge difference. Like a position they need is probably not interior defensive line. It's probably more so edge, corner. They could add a defensive lineman, but I'd be careful to add one that early. I don't have a clue. I get the feeling that they'll probably sign a UDFA or draft one, but I don't really know. Ugh. All right, guys. Be sure to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Be sure to hit the like button if you haven't already. And I will be back tomorrow in all likelihood. And hopefully there will be more news. I don't know, but it'd be cool. So yeah, you guys take care. And I'll see y'all soon. Later, folks. You ever get those ridiculous social media scams where people pretend to be somebody you're friends with and tell you you can make a lot of money? I know I do. It's why I'm very excited to partner with today's sponsor, Aura. Aura is an easy-to-use app that essentially packages a bunch of services to stay safe online all in one. Aura protects you from scammers and hackers. They scan the web for all sorts of data leaks and alert you as soon as they find anything. Aura is like the offensive line for a quarterback, consistently offering you protection from suspicious and malicious activity. They have a VPN built in that keeps your browsing history and personal information safe and encrypted. They'll even alert you if someone's trying to open up a credit card or a loan in your name. Did I mention they protect all your devices from viruses, malware, spyware, and any other things so the bad guys can't break in? Aura can even manage what your kids do on their devices. You can set limits and restrict them from specific apps. They have a password manager as well, so you don't have to rely on an outdated Rolodex or that sticky note that's been on your desk forever. There are apps that do all of these things, but there isn't one that tackles everything the way Aura does, which is why I say Aura is a 5-man offensive line and you're the quarterback. So head on over to aura.com/JKB. You can find it in the description and start your free trial today.